The interrogation room was designed to break the will of alien prisoners, but to Hyunwoo it looked like any other military facility he had seen. Cold metal walls lined with monitoring equipment and restraint devices that were clearly built for creatures much larger than humans. The aliens had strapped him into a chair that was 3 times too big for his body, making him look even smaller and more helpless than usual. Crick's venom entered the room with the confidence of a predator who knew his prey could not escape. The interrogation specialist carried himself like someone who had broken thousands of prisoners and expected this human to be the easiest one yet. Behind him came 2 guards, who immediately took positions by the door, but seemed more interested in their personal devices than watching the prisoner. The interrogator activated several machines that hummed and glowed around the room, psychological torture devices that were designed to create fear and confusion in alien minds. Crix explained each one in broken human language, clearly trying to intimidate his prisoner. What he did not realize was that Hyunwoo had been trained to resist torture techniques that were far more advanced than anything the aliens possessed. Crix began his questioning with basic military intelligence. How many ships did the human fleet have? How many soldiers? Where were the main bases located? What were their defensive capabilities? The questions came fast and aggressive, designed to overwhelm a frightened prisoner into giving quick answers. Hyunwoo responded with a mixture of truth and lies that painted a picture of human weakness while actually revealing nothing useful. He told the interrogator that human ships were slow and lightly armed. He claimed that human soldiers were poorly trained and equipped. He described defensive positions that did not exist and bases that were in the wrong locations. The information was delivered with just the right amount of fear and reluctance to make it seem genuine. Crix was clearly pleased with how quickly the human was breaking under pressure. The interrogator made notes on his datapad and occasionally smiled with satisfaction at how easy this was turning out to be. What Crix did not realize was that Hyunwoo was conducting his own interrogation. Every question the alien asked revealed something about Vorthon military thinking and capabilities. Every reaction showed weaknesses in their intelligence gathering. Every minute in the room gave the SEAL more information about their ship and procedures. After 2 hours, Crix was feeling completely confident in his success. He had filled pages of notes with what he believed was valuable human military intelligence. The prisoner seemed completely broken and cooperative, answering every question without resistance. It was time to move to the final phase of intimidation to make sure the human would continue cooperating. This was when Crix made his fatal mistake. The interrogator stood up from his chair and walked around the restraint device to get closer to the prisoner. He wanted to deliver a final threat face to face to make sure the human understood how helpless his situation was. Crix leaned in close enough that Hyunwoo could smell the alien's strange metallic breath. In that moment, the restraints that had seemed so secure became meaningless. Hyunwoo's hands were still bound with energy shackles, but a Navy SEAL did not need free hands to kill. His body had been trained into a weapon that could function under any conditions, and the aliens had never bothered to learn how dangerous human anatomy could be. The strike came faster than the alien eye could follow. Hyunwoo's head snapped forward, connecting with Crix's throat at exactly the right angle to crush the creature's vocal cords and windpipe. The interrogator stumbled backward, making choking sounds, but the damage was already done. Before Crix hit the floor, Hyunwoo was already moving against the guards. His legs swept one alien off his feet, while his bound hands struck nerve clusters that shut down the other's motor functions instantly. Both guards collapsed, without even having time to reach for their weapons. The entire encounter took less than 10 seconds. 3 aliens who had thought they were interrogating a helpless prisoner now lay dead or dying on the floor of their most secure facility. The room's security cameras had recorded everything, showing the galaxy exactly how dangerous humans could be when pushed too far. Crix managed one last gasping breath before his crushed throat finally closed completely. His eyes showed the terror of a predator who had suddenly realized he was actually the prey. The interrogation specialist who had boasted about breaking human prisoners in minutes had been killed by one in seconds. Hyunwoo worked quickly to free himself from the restraint chair using techniques he had learned in escape and evasion training. The energy shackles were more complex, but he had been watching how they operated during his time in the cell. Within minutes, he was free and searching the room for anything useful. The guards' weapons were too large for human hands, but their communication devices were simple enough to figure out. Hyunwoo activated one and immediately heard excited alien voices discussing the situation in the interrogation room. The ship's security forces had seen the attack on their monitors and were already mobilizing to hunt him down. Through the facilities, internal cameras, Hyunwoo could see armed aliens running through the corridors toward his location. Captain Thaldor was shouting orders and pointing at tactical displays that showed the interrogation room surrounded. The security chief looked angry and confused as he tried to understand how 3 aliens had been killed by one small human. But the aliens were thinking like aliens, and Hyunwoo was thinking like a human special operations soldier. While they were surrounding the interrogation room, he was already moving through maintenance passages they had not even considered. The ship had been designed for 8-foot-tall creatures, which meant there were spaces too small for them to access, but perfect for a human to navigate. The ventilation system became his highway through the ship. Crawling through the metal ducts reminded him of urban warfare training, except now he was fighting inside an alien vessel instead of a human building. Every lesson he had learned about moving unseen through enemy territory was about to be put to the ultimate test. From his position in the ship's ventilation system, Hyunwoo could hear the aliens searching the interrogation facility below. They were checking every room and corridor, but none of them thought to look up. Their species was too large to use the maintenance passages, so they assumed no prisoner could either. Captain Thaldor was getting reports from his search teams over the communication system. Room after room came back clear, with no sign of the escaped prisoner. The security chief was starting to sound frustrated and worried as he realized the human had simply vanished from their most secure area. Hyunwoo smiled as he crawled through the darkness toward the ship's central systems. The aliens thought they were hunting a prisoner who was trying to escape. They had no idea they were about to face a Navy SEAL who was just getting started. The real fight was about to begin, and this time the humans would not be the ones caught by surprise. The ship's internal communications were buzzing with confused reports and conflicting orders. Officers were arguing about how one human could disappear so completely from a secured facility. Dr. Corville was demanding to examine the bodies to understand how the prisoner had killed 3 aliens so quickly. But most importantly, Hyunwoo could hear the fear starting to creep into their voices. For the first time since capturing him, the aliens were beginning to realize that maybe humans were not as weak and helpless as they had assumed. Maybe they had made a terrible mistake bringing this particular prisoner aboard their ship. The hunt was on, but the aliens were about to learn they were not the hunters in this situation. They were the prey. Hyunwoo woke up inside what looked like a cage made of blue energy bars. His head was pounding and his body ached from the battle, but he was alive. The cell was huge by human standards, but he guessed it was normal size for the 8-foot-tall aliens who had built it. Everything on the alien ship was built for creatures much larger than humans. The first thing Hyunwoo did was test his injuries. His left arm was badly bruised, and he had cuts on his face and hands, but nothing was broken. The aliens had treated his wounds with some kind of medical spray that made his skin feel numb. They wanted to keep their prisoner healthy for questioning. Through the energy bars, he could see a long corridor with metal walls covered in alien writing. The lighting was harsh and blue and made everything look cold and unfriendly. Other cells lined the corridor, but they were all empty. It seemed like the aliens did not take many prisoners. 2 Vorthan guards stood outside his cell, talking in their strange language that sounded like rocks grinding together. They were massive creatures with gray skin that looked like armor, and 4 arms that ended in clawed hands. Both guards carried energy weapons that were bigger than Hyunwoo could lift, but what struck him most was how relaxed they seemed. The guards were not watching him carefully like they should be watching a dangerous prisoner. Instead, they were playing some kind of game on a small device, passing it back and forth between them. Every few minutes, they would look at Hyunwoo and make sounds that he was pretty sure were laughter. More aliens came by to look at the human prisoner over the next few hours. Scientists and soldiers and officers all stopped by his cell like he was some kind of zoo animal. They pointed at him and made comments in their language, and some of them even took pictures. None of them seemed worried or concerned about security. Captain Vex Thaldor was the worst of them all. The security chief was bigger than the other Vorthons, and his armor was covered with medals and rank symbols. When he came to inspect the prisoner, he brought a whole crowd of junior officers with him. Thaldor stood in front of the cell and gave what sounded like a lecture about human weakness. Thaldor made exaggerated gestures pointing at Hyunwoo's small size compared to the aliens. He flexed his 4 arms to show his strength, then pointed at the humans, 2 arms, and laughed. The other officers joined in the laughter like it was the funniest joke they had ever heard. To them, humans were clearly an inferior species that posed no real threat. The ship's doctor came by next, Dr. Nex. Korvul was a female Vorthon with lighter-colored skin and more scientific equipment than weapons. She scanned Hyunwoo with various devices and made notes on a data tablet. Her examination was thorough but not gentle, and she handled him like he was a laboratory specimen. Dr. Korvul seemed amazed by how fragile humans appeared to be. She poked at his muscles and bones and made disapproving sounds. She took samples of his hair and skin and even drew some blood with a device that looked like it was designed for much larger creatures. Through it all, she acted like she was studying a particularly weak and pathetic animal. The interrogation specialist came by last. Crick's Venom was a tall, thin Vorthon with scars covering his arms and face. His job was breaking prisoners and extracting information from them. He looked at Hyunwoo the way a cat might look at a mouse and smiled with too many sharp teeth. Crick spoke to the guards in their language, and they all laughed again. Hyunwoo could not understand the words, but he could guess what they were saying. The interrogator was probably bragging about how quickly he could break a weak human prisoner. Maybe he was even taking bets on how long it would take. What none of the aliens realized was that Hyunwoo was using this time to learn about their ship and their procedures. His SEAL training had taught him to always be gathering intelligence, even when he appeared to be helpless. Every minute he spent in the cell was another minute to study his captors and plan his next move. He memorized the guard rotations and counted how many aliens passed by each hour. He studied the layout of the corridor and noted where the security cameras were positioned. He listened to conversations and tried to pick up basic words in the alien language. Most importantly, he watched for patterns and weaknesses he could exploit later. The aliens had made their first big mistake by underestimating him. Their second mistake was not searching him properly. Hidden in his boot was a small ceramic knife that their metal detectors had missed. It was only 3 inches long, but in the hands of a trained SEAL, it could be a deadly weapon. The ship's intercom system announced something in the alien language several times during the day. Hyunwoo could not understand the words, but he could tell it was some kind of schedule or countdown. Based on the reactions of the guards, he guessed they were getting close to their destination. Late in the day, a group of young alien officers came by to stare at the human prisoner. They were clearly new recruits who had never seen a human before. They pointed and whispered, and one of them even tried to get Hyunwoo to perform tricks by throwing food at him through the energy bars. The young aliens seemed to think humans were some kind of primitive species that could barely use tools. They made primitive gestures and grunted like animals trying to communicate with what they saw as a lower life form. Their commander laughed and encouraged their behavior like it was all good fun. One of the young aliens got brave and reached through the energy bars trying to touch the human prisoner. Hyunwoo could have grabbed the alien's arm and broken it, easily, but he stayed still and acted defeated. Let them think he was harmless and broken. Let them believe their own propaganda about human weakness. The entertainment value of the human prisoner seemed to be spreading throughout the ship. More and more aliens came by to look at him and make jokes. Some brought friends, and some brought recording devices. Hyunwoo was becoming a tourist attraction aboard their warship. Captain Thaldor returned with an even bigger crowd of officers for what seemed to be an official presentation. He stood in front of the cell and gave a long speech about Vorthon's superiority and human inferiority. The crowd cheered and applauded when he finished. They were all convinced that humans were no match for the mighty Vorthon Empire. As the crowd dispersed, Hyunwoo heard something that made his blood run cold. One of the officers mentioned a time frame that he could understand from context. 18 hours. In 18 hours, they would reach the Vorthon home system where he would face trial and execution. But 18 hours was also how long he had to turn their arrogance against them. 18 hours to show these aliens why humans were the most dangerous species in the galaxy. 18 hours to make them regret the day they decided to threaten human colonies. The guards settled in for another boring shift, watching their harmless, human prisoner. They had no idea that the small, quiet creature in the cell was already planning their deaths. The red sun of Kepler 442b was setting behind the Crystal Mountains when Commander Hyunwoo Kim checked his watch for the third time in 5 minutes. The mining planet looked peaceful from their hiding spot among the purple rocks, but Hyunwoo knew better than to trust appearances. His team had been watching the alien base for 2 days now, and something felt very wrong about the whole situation. Bo-Ram Lee crawled up beside him carrying her heavy explosives pack. Her face was covered in dust and sweat, but her eyes were sharp and alert. She had been with Hyunwoo on 12 missions before this one, and he trusted her with his life. Behind them, Tae-hyun Park was setting up the communication equipment that would let them talk to Earth Command. All 3 of them were Navy SEALs, and all 3 of them knew this mission was more dangerous than their commanders had told them. The alien base stretched out below them like a metal cancer on the planet's surface. Vorthon Empire ships were landing, every few hours bringing more soldiers and equipment. The aliens were 8 feet tall with thick gray skin and 4 arms each. They moved like they owned the universe, and maybe they thought they did. What worried Hyunwoo was not just how many aliens were down there, but what they were building. Hyunwoo had seen Vorthon bases before during the border wars. This was different. The aliens were not just setting up a trading post or mining operation. They were building something that looked like a launching platform for a massive attack. The energy readings that Tae-hyun was picking up suggested weapons that could destroy entire cities from orbit. Bo-Ram pointed at a new ship landing near the center of the base. This one was bigger than the others and painted with red marks that meant it carried someone important. Through his binoculars, Hyunwoo could see alien officers gathering around the landing pad. One of them was wearing armor that sparkled with rank symbols. The human colonies on this planet had no idea what was coming. 3 settlements with over 100,000 people total were scattered across the southern continent. They were miners and farmers and traders who had come here to build new lives. Most of them had never even seen a weapon except for the hunting rifles they used to scare away the local wildlife. Tae-hyun finished setting up his equipment and crawled over to join them. His communication array was the most advanced technology the human military had. It could send messages across the galaxy in real time using quantum entanglement. The problem was that using it was like lighting a signal fire that everyone could see. Hyunwoo made his decision. They needed to warn Earth, command about what they had discovered even if it meant giving away their position. The lives of those 100,000 colonists were more important than the safety of his 3-person team. Tae-hyun began transmitting their report back to Earth. The message contained detailed images of the alien base and weapon readings and troop counts. It also contained Hyunwoo's recommendation that the human fleet be sent immediately to evacuate the colonies before the aliens could launch their attack. The transmission took 12 minutes to complete. For 12 minutes, the three SEALs lay on the rocky ground watching the alien base and hoping that no one would notice their signal. For 12 minutes, everything seemed normal and quiet and safe. Then the alarms started blaring across the alien base. The Vorthon soldiers moved with frightening speed and organization. Within seconds of the alarms starting, aircraft were lifting off from the base and spreading out in search patterns. The aliens had not just detected the human transmission, they had tracked it back to its source. Hyunwoo grabbed his rifle and started giving orders. Bo-Ram was to take her explosives and destroy the communication equipment so the aliens could not capture it. Tae-hyun was to grab what data he could and prepare for immediate extraction. All three of them knew that extraction was probably not going to happen, but they were SEALs, and SEALs never gave up. The first Vorthon aircraft appeared over their position within minutes. It was a sleek flying machine that moved without making any sound. Hyunwoo shot at it with his rifle, but the bullets bounced off its armored hull like raindrops. The aircraft fired back with energy weapons that turned the rocks around them into glowing slag. More aircraft arrived, and soon the air was full of alien ships hunting for the human team. Hyunwoo led Bo-Ram and Tae-hyun deeper into the crystal, formations hoping to find cover. The rocks were sharp and cut their clothes and skin, but they kept moving because stopping meant dying. The aliens began landing troops on the ground to search for them. Vorthon soldiers in powered armor crashed through the crystal formations like they were made of glass. Each soldier was twice as tall as a human and carried weapons that could punch holes through solid rock. But the SEALs had trained for this, kind of fight their whole careers. Hyunwoo used the crystal formations like a maze, leading the aliens into narrow passages where their size worked against them. He picked them off one by one with precise shots to weak spots in their armor. Bo-Ram used her explosives to collapse passages behind them and create barriers. Tae-hyun used his technical skills to jam the aliens' communications and make them fight blind. For 3 hours, the battle raged through the crystal canyons. The three humans moved like ghosts, using every trick they had learned in decades of special operations training. They killed dozens of aliens and destroyed several aircraft. But there were always more enemies coming, and the SEALs were running, out of ammunition and energy and luck. The end came when a Vorthon heavy assault team surrounded their final position. Bo-Ram saw them coming and made a choice that only a true warrior could make. She grabbed her remaining explosives and ran straight at an alien hover tank that was about to crush their position. Her sacrifice destroyed the tank and gave Hyunwoo and Tae-hyun a few more precious minutes. Tae-hyun fell next when he stayed behind to cover Hyunwoo's retreat. The communication specialist held off 20 aliens with just his sidearm and bought enough time for his commander to reach a better defensive position. His last words over the radio were telling Hyunwoo to complete the mission no matter what happened. Hyunwoo fought alone for another hour before the aliens finally overwhelmed him. His rifle was empty, his sidearm was out of ammunition, and his body was covered with cuts and burns. But even then, he kept fighting using his bare hands and anything he could find as a weapon. The aliens had to use stun weapons to bring him down because he refused to surrender. When Hyunwoo finally fell unconscious, the aliens gathered around him in amazement. They had never seen anything like his fighting spirit. The Vorthon commander, who had been watching the battle from his command ship, ordered that the human be taken alive. He wanted to study this creature that had killed so many of his soldiers. As the aliens carried Hyunwoo's unconscious body toward their transport ship, they thought they had captured a valuable prisoner. They had no idea that they had just made the biggest mistake in their species' history. They were about to learn why humans were the most dangerous predators in the galaxy. Captain Thaldor stood in the command center staring at tactical displays that made no sense to him. His security teams had been hunting the escaped human prisoner for 6 hours and had found nothing except bodies. 12 more aliens were dead. And the humans seemed to be moving through their ship like a ghost that could strike anywhere and vanish without a trace. The bodies were found in maintenance areas and storage rooms, and even inside weapons lockers. Each scene told the same terrifying story. Aliens who were twice the size of their human prey had been killed quickly and quietly using improvised weapons or bare hands. The human was turning their own ship into a hunting ground. Security Chief Grod Thex was coordinating the search from the main security station. He had over 200 soldiers searching every corridor and room on the ship. Motion detectors and thermal scanners were active on every level. Armed patrols were stationed at every critical system and intersection. By all logic, the human should have been found and killed within the first hour. Instead, more bodies kept appearing while the prisoner remained invisible. The aliens were starting to jump at shadows and shoot at empty corridors. 3 of them had already killed each other in friendly fire incidents because they were so scared and trigger-happy. The human was winning a psychological war without even being seen. Dr. Yara Kelm was studying human anatomy and behavior files in her laboratory, trying to understand what they were really facing. The official Vorthon database described humans as a weak, primitive species with limited physical capabilities. But the evidence from the ship told a very different story about what humans could actually do. The more Dr. Kelm studied, the more terrified she became. Humans had evolved as persistence hunters on a world filled with dangerous predators. They were built to track and kill creatures much larger than themselves, using intelligence and endurance and ruthless determination. Their entire species was basically a race of specialized killers. What made it worse was that this particular human was clearly a military specialist. His movements through the ship showed advanced training in warfare and sabotage. He knew how to use their own systems against them and how to turn every advantage they had into a weakness. They were not just fighting a human, they were fighting a human weapon. In the armory, Hyunwoo was studying Vorthon military equipment and learning how to use their technology against them. The weapons were too large for his hands, but the explosives were similar enough to human designs that he could work with them. Within an hour, he had created several improvised bombs using alien components. The first bomb went off in the ship's main power distribution center. The explosion was not large enough to destroy the system, but it caused power fluctuations throughout the vessel. Lights flickered and computer systems reset randomly, creating confusion and fear among the crew. The aliens realized their prisoner was not just hiding, he was actively sabotaging their ship. The second bomb exploded in the water recycling facility. Again, the damage was not critical, but it forced the aliens to activate emergency backup systems and reroute essential functions through alternate pathways. More importantly, it showed them that the human understood their ship well enough to target specific vulnerabilities. Captain Thaldor began receiving damage reports from all over the ship. Life support systems were being tampered with. Navigation. Computers were being reprogrammed. Weapon systems were being turned offline one by one. The human prisoner was conducting a one-man war against their entire vessel, and he was winning. The third bomb was different. Instead of targeting systems, it targeted personnel. Hyunwoo had placed it in a corridor that security teams used as a primary patrol route. When it exploded, it killed 8 aliens instantly and wounded 12 more. The message was clear: the human was no longer just escaping, he was hunting them. Security teams that had been aggressive and confident in their searches suddenly became cautious and frightened. They moved in larger groups and checked every shadow twice before advancing. Some teams refused to enter certain areas of the ship without massive backup. The hunter had become the hunted, and the aliens did not like being prey. Dr. Kelm sent her research report to Captain Thaldor and every senior officer on the ship. Her findings were disturbing enough that several officers questioned whether the data could be accurate. According to her analysis, humans were one of the most dangerous predator species the galaxy had ever produced. They had been disguised as a peaceful race, but their true nature was now being revealed. The report explained that humans had evolved on a death world where survival required constant violence and adaptation. Their military training took these natural predatory instincts and refined them into the perfect killing techniques. A human soldier like their prisoner was essentially a walking weapon system designed for exactly this type of combat situation. More importantly, Dr. Kelm had discovered that human military doctrine was based on something called asymmetric warfare. This meant they specialized in fighting enemies that were larger and more powerful than themselves by using superior tactics and psychological pressure. Everything their prisoner was doing followed patterns that were taught to human special forces. The aliens began to understand that they were not fighting some primitive creature that had gotten lucky. They were facing a representative of a species that had turned warfare into an art form over thousands of years of constant conflict. Every technique he was using had been perfected through centuries of human military evolution. In the communications center, Hyunwoo was learning about Vorthon military structure and capabilities by monitoring their emergency transmissions. The aliens were calling for backup from other ships in their fleet, but those vessels were still hours away. More importantly, he was learning about their planned attack on human colonies and how to prevent it. Using the ship's own communication array, Hyunwoo sent a quantum burst transmission to Earth Command. The message contained everything he had learned about Vorthon capabilities and intentions, along with tactical recommendations for defending the human colonies. The aliens detected the transmission, but could not stop it or decode its contents. Captain Thaldor realized that his prisoner had just sent military intelligence back to the human fleet. Everything they had planned for their attack on human space was now compromised. The mission that was supposed to give them control over 3 star systems had been ruined by one escaped prisoner who refused to die quietly. The psychological effect on the crew was devastating. These aliens had thought of themselves as an elite, military force capable of conquering any enemy. Now they were trapped on their own ship with a creature that was picking them off one by one, using their own technology against them. Many crew members were requesting transfers to other vessels. Engineering teams reported that critical systems throughout the ship were being sabotaged faster than they could be repaired. The humans seemed to understand their technology better than some of their own technicians. He was not just randomly destroying things, he was targeting specific components that would cause maximum disruption with minimal effort. The final psychological blow came when security teams found Chief Engineer Brix Corvon's body in the main engine control room. The engineer had been killed with his own tools while trying to repair damage to the propulsion systems. Written on the wall above his body in alien characters was a message that none of them wanted to read. The message was simple, but terrifying in its implications. In their own language, using their own writing system, the human had written the words, "You are not hunters, you are prey." The alien who had learned their language and their writing system well enough to leave taunting messages was clearly much more intelligent than they had assumed. Captain Thaldor looked around his command center at officers who were showing signs of panic and fear. Half his crew was dead or wounded, and the other half was too scared to do their jobs properly. Their ship was being torn apart from the inside by one human prisoner who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. The hunt was over and the aliens had lost. Now they were just trying to survive long enough for rescue ships to arrive. The command bridge of the Crimson Dominion had become a fortress under siege. Captain Thaldor and his remaining officers had sealed themselves behind 3 layers of armored blast doors with enough supplies to last for days. Outside those doors, their own ship had become enemy territory controlled by a single human prisoner who seemed to be everywhere at once. 67 aliens were confirmed dead, and dozens more were missing and presumed killed. The human had seized control of weapon systems, environmental controls, and most importantly, the communications array. From his position somewhere in the ship's depths, the prisoner was broadcasting messages that were being received by fleets across the galaxy. The most terrifying part was that nobody could find him. Security cameras throughout the ship showed empty corridors and vacant rooms. Motion detectors picked up nothing. Thermal scanners found no trace of body heat anywhere the human should not be. It was like fighting a ghost that could kill but could never be killed in return. Dr. Kelm worked frantically at her research station, trying to understand how one human could destroy an entire ship's crew so completely. Her studies of human evolution and military history painted a picture that made her want to flee to the farthest corner of the galaxy. Humans were not just warriors. They were the ultimate warriors bred by millions of years of constant warfare on their death world. The latest. Intelligence reports from the ship's computer showed that the human had been systematically destroying backup systems and redundant controls. He was not just randomly sabotaging equipment, he was following a careful plan to take complete control of every critical function. Soon, he would have power over life support propulsion and even the ship's self-destruct mechanism. Captain Thaldor tried to contact other Vorthan ships in the fleet, but the human had modified their communication systems to broadcast everything on open channels. Every word they said was being recorded and transmitted to human intelligence services. Their military secrets were being stolen even as they spoke. The breakthrough came when Engineering Officer Vok Thrain managed to trace power fluctuations to the ship's central computer core. The human had somehow gained access to their most secure facility and was using their own artificial intelligence system to coordinate his attacks. He was not just fighting them, he was turning their own technology into his ally. From the computer core, Hyun-woo had access to every system on the ship. He could monitor all communications, track every crew member, and control anything connected to the main network. The aliens had built their vessel to be completely automated, and now that automation was working for their enemy instead of them. The first major strike came when Hyun-woo used the ship's internal transport system to move explosives. Throughout the vessel, automated cargo pods carried bombs to key locations while the alien crew watched helplessly on their security monitors. Explosions rocked the ship as power systems and weapon batteries were destroyed in coordinated attacks. The second strike targeted the crew directly. Using the ship's atmospheric controls, Hyun-woo began flooding certain sections with sedative gases that knocked out any aliens who breathed them. Security teams that had been hunting him suddenly found themselves falling asleep in their own corridors. Those who tried to use breathing apparatus discovered that their equipment had been sabotaged. Captain Thaldor realized that his remaining crew members were being eliminated systematically and efficiently. The human was no longer hiding in the shadows, he was using the ship itself as a weapon against them. Every system they depended on for survival was now under enemy control. The communications array crackled to life with an incoming transmission from human space. Admiral Song Min-ho of the Earth Defense Force was calling on a secure channel that somehow the human prisoner had been able to access. The conversation that followed changed everything the aliens thought they knew about the situation. Admiral Song informed them that the human military had received detailed intelligence about Vorthan invasion plans thanks to transmissions from their prisoner. The Earth fleet was already moving to defend the threatened colonies and counterattack Vorthan positions throughout the sector. What had been planned as a surprise attack was now a trap waiting to destroy the alien invasion force. More shocking was the revelation that the prisoner they had captured was not just any human soldier. Commander Hyun-woo Kim was one of Earth's most elite special operations warriors, with a service record that included dozens of successful missions against impossible odds. They had not captured a random prisoner, they had captured one of humanity's most dangerous weapons. The Admiral explained that Commander Kim had volunteered for what was essentially a suicide mission to gather intelligence about Vorthan military capabilities. His capture had been part of the plan, and everything that followed was the result of careful training and preparation. The aliens had walked into a trap that had been designed specifically for them. Hyun-woo used the ship's intercom system to address the remaining crew members directly. His voice echoed through every corridor and compartment as he spoke in perfect Vorthan language that he had learned by accessing their computer databases. The message was simple but terrifying in its implications. He told them that everything they believed about human military capabilities was wrong. Earth had thousands of soldiers like him, and their technology was far more advanced than Vorthan intelligence had reported. The invasion fleet that was heading toward human space was flying into a massacre that would destroy their entire military force. But more importantly, he explained that their species had made a fundamental error in understanding what humans actually were. They had seen a relatively small and physically weak species and assumed that meant humans were not dangerous. They had not realized that humans were predators who specialized in killing things much larger and stronger than themselves. The intercom message continued with a detailed explanation of human military doctrine and how it applied to their current situation. Humans did not fight fair. They fought to win using every available advantage and showing no mercy to enemies who threatened their people. The Vorthan Empire had declared war on a species that had turned warfare into an art form. Captain Thaldor listened to the message with growing horror as he realized how completely his species had misunderstood their enemy. They had thought they were attacking a weak, primitive race that would surrender quickly when faced with superior force. Instead, they had attacked the most dangerous predators in the galaxy and given them a reason to unleash their full military potential. The ship's artificial intelligence system began showing tactical displays that demonstrated human military capabilities based on data the prisoner had accessed from their computers. Fleet compositions, weapons specifications, and defensive strategies that were far more advanced than anything in Vorthan databases. The humans had been hiding their true strength while gathering intelligence about potential enemies. Environmental alarms began sounding throughout the ship as Hyun-Woo systematically shut down life support systems. He was not trying to kill the remaining crew members quickly. Instead, he was forcing them to make an impossible choice. They could surrender and hope for mercy, or they could die slowly as their air ran out and their ship became a tomb. Captain Thaldor tried to activate the ship's self-destruct mechanism to prevent their technology from falling into human hands, but discovered that those controls had been locked out from the central computer. The human prisoner had anticipated even this desperate final option and blocked it. They were completely helpless aboard their own vessel. The final message from Commander Kim was broadcast on all frequencies to ensure it reached every Vorthan ship in the sector. He announced that their invasion fleet was about to be destroyed by human forces and that any survivors would be treated as war criminals. The age of Vorthan expansion was over, and the age of human dominance was about to begin. As rescue ships from both fleets approached the disabled alien vessel, the remaining Vorthan crew members huddled together in their sealed command bridge, knowing that their military careers and possibly their lives were finished. They had learned too late that humans were not the weak prey species they appeared to be, but instead the most dangerous hunters the galaxy had ever seen. The rescue fleet that arrived at the coordinates of the disabled Vorthan dreadnought found a scene that would be talked about in military academies across the galaxy for generations to come. The massive alien warship hung dead in space with its engines dark and its weapon systems offline. But what shocked both human and alien observers was the complete absence of any resistance from what should have been one of the most powerful vessels in the Vorthan fleet. Fleet Admiral Park Soo-jin stood on the bridge of the Earth vessel Inchenstrike and studied the tactical displays with amazement. Her sensors showed that the alien ship still had several hundred crew members alive, but they were all concentrated in small sealed sections of the vessel. The rest of the ship appeared to be under the control of a single human life sign that was moving freely through areas the aliens could not reach. The first boarding party that entered the Crimson Dominion was led by Marine Colonel Jin Woo-sung and his elite assault team. What they found inside defied everything they knew about small unit tactics and ship-to-ship combat. Corridors were filled with alien bodies and improvised explosive devices. Critical systems had been sabotaged with a precision that showed intimate knowledge of Vorthon technology. Most impressive was the evidence of psychological warfare that had been conducted throughout the ship. Alien script had been carved into metal walls with messages designed to terrorize the surviving crew members. Security cameras had been modified to broadcast images of dead aliens to monitors throughout the vessel. The human prisoner had turned the ship into a monument to fear. Commander Hyunwoo Kim was found in the central computer core, surrounded by alien technology that he had rewired to serve his purposes. He had been awake for over 36 hours straight, conducting a one-man war against an entire ship, but his eyes were still sharp and alert. When the Marines entered his position, he was calmly downloading the entire Vorthon military database to portable storage devices. The data he had collected was beyond price. Complete fleet compositions, base locations, weapon specifications, and battle plans for the entire Vorthon Empire. Intelligence that would take human spies decades to gather through normal methods had been stolen in a single operation by one navy. SEAL, who had turned his own capture into the greatest intelligence coup in military history. Admiral Park personally conducted the debriefing as they transferred back to human space. Commander Kim provided detailed reports on everything he had learned about alien psychology technology and military doctrine. His observations would reshape human understanding of their place in the galaxy and how to deal with other species who might threaten Earth. But the most important intelligence was about human capabilities as seen through alien eyes. The Vorthons had kept detailed records of everything their prisoner had done, including video footage of his combat techniques and tactical innovations. For the first time, humans could see themselves as their enemies saw them, and the picture was both terrifying and inspiring. Dr. Kelm and the other surviving Vorthon scientists were taken into protective custody by human forces. Their research on human evolution and military capabilities had painted an accurate picture of what Earth was really capable of when threatened. These alien scientists had become unwitting experts on human warfare, and their knowledge would be invaluable for future diplomatic negotiations. Captain Thaldor and his surviving officers faced military tribunals that would determine their fate as war criminals. But more immediately, they faced the complete collapse of their invasion plans and the destruction of their military careers. The intelligence that Commander Kim had stolen was already being used to target Vorthon positions throughout the sector. The Battle of Kepler Nebula took place just 48 hours after the rescue of the Crimson Dominion. Human forces used captured Vorthon intelligence to ambush the alien invasion fleet in a coordinated attack that destroyed over half their ships and forced the remainder to retreat. The war that was supposed to establish Vorthon dominance over human space ended in complete defeat. News of the battle spread throughout the galaxy faster than official military communications. The story of a single human prisoner who had destroyed an entire alien warship became legend among dozens of species. Diplomatic channels buzzed with requests for information about human military capabilities and intentions. The Galactic Trade Federation called an emergency session to address what they now recognized as a fundamental miscalculation about human nature. Species that had considered Earth to be a minor power suddenly realized they were dealing with predators who had been deliberately hiding their true strength. Trade agreements and territorial disputes were renegotiated with new respect for human positions. Ambassador Chang So-young found herself fielding requests from alien governments who wanted to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth. Species that had ignored human attempts at communication for decades suddenly wanted to be allies and trading partners. The balance of